العالمين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين واللعنة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه الحكيم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وجعلنا منهم أئمة يهدون بأمرنا لما صبروا وكانوا بآياتنا يوقنون. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. الثانيا غفر الله لكم. والثالثة بحب الزهراء وأولاد الزهراء. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بذكرنا المسائب آل محمد. May Allah increase in our reward for commemorating the difficulties of Ali Muhammad. This majlis is in the commemoration of the shahadat of our fifth Imam, Muhammad ibn Ali, Baqir ilm al-Nabiyyin. Sallu ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Our discussion has 4 points to it. The first of these points is to understand what is the purpose of an Imam. The second, to understand what is the most important attribute that an Imam possesses, or what's the most important defining characteristic of an Imam on this earth. The third, to understand what is the relationship between all of the A'immah and Imam Hussein in the Waqi' of Karbala. And finally, to look at some of the points, some of the nuqat from the life of our fifth Imam that we can glean information from and learn more about, the importance and the weight of our Imam and what he has left to us as an inheritance. When we begin this conversation and understanding our first point in conversation, talking about the idea of what is the purpose of an Imam, what is the importance, why is an Imam important to exist? The question actually comes from understanding the difference in ideology between us and the other sects of Islam. You see, Madhab Ja'fari insists that one's faith is incomplete if one does not possess the position of imama as a composite of their faith. Whereas amongst other traditions, it is possible that a person, if they respect and they follow the fundamentals, that there's no question, no problem. Why? Why do we have to insist when the kalma shahadat is fundamentally composed of two statements: La ilaha illallah, Muhammadar Rasulullah. Why have we brought about the insistence of this third statement of Aliyun Waliullah, and that wilayah is from the necessities that is required? An understanding of this question is significant for us to be able to have confidence in our faith, to be able to look at our faith and understand that we are people of intellect and that there is a reason that this is a necessity for it to exist. Everybody's okay? Everybody's good? Sallu ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. You see, Allah has created everything with order, and within existence there is a structure by which everything follows and flows. Which is why Allah, when He put insan on this earth, He explained that the essence of insan and humanity to be on this earth, there has to be a structure of guidance. Which is why the first human being that was put on this earth, Allah, when He put him on this earth, He said, Inni ja'ilun fil ardi Khalifa. He says, I need to put an authority on this earth for humanity to be able to be present on this earth. The aspect of that humanity, that authority, this Khalifa, there are two ways of understanding this. One is bashaklin am, general sense of the Khalifa, meaning that Allah has given us, humanity, the authority over the earth to spend and to utilize the earth however we choose to. That when we as humanity look at this earth, everything that is in this earth is for us to benefit from and to utilize. And there is nothing wrong with it. Why? Because Allah made us the authority on this earth. He gave us the right to use this earth. He gave us this earth as our tool to utilize. Now remember something, Allah has given us the permission for use, not abuse. Today, if we have problems in society, today, if the earth is in a poor condition, it's not because man has used the resources of the earth, it's because man has abused the resources of the earth. We have exceeded the realms of permissibility. And what's the consequence? Is that some people have said that no, then any use of this item is bad. Look at the idea of, for example, the one who comes and says vegan, vegetarian. He says, no, these animals are not for us. No, what happened was that human being saw an abuse of the animals, saw an abuse of the system that Allah created, and decided to go the exact opposite direction because he saw abuse in it. Everything that exists in this earth is entitled for man to use. This is what Allah means, that when he says, one of the meanings of what Allah means when he says, Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa. That man is my authority over this earth, and man has the right to utilize this earth and to benefit from it, and whatever is placed therein is for man's benefit. Now man in society has gone through the process of abusing this, and therefore we find that there is difficulty in the world, and people now say that maybe we have no right on this earth. But no, the purpose of creation was to use this earth. The second and khas meaning of this Khalifa is that Allah has put the connection between the heavens, between himself and humanity on this earth, that there should be a connection between Allah and man, so that man understands the purpose of his creation. Man understands why he was created. Man understands what it is that he is supposed to do with his life. So Allah says, before I put any person of humanity on this earth, I put someone on this earth to teach you mankind what I want you to do with this life. That idea that Allah has implemented and created this system, that man needs a connection and needs to know what he's doing on this earth, Allah has then implied and stated and structured that if the connection has to come first before humanity comes on this earth, then oh humanity, never expect that there will be a time on this earth when my connection is absent from you. That there has to be an authority of Allah on this earth, otherwise man has no right to be on this earth. This is the purpose, that there has to be some aspect of connection at all times between the divine and the material and the world as it exists. Now, this topic of discussing and explaining the idea that there has to be a connection, there has to be an authority, someone who is given the authority by Allah to be able to operate on this earth, then the question is, well, then if there is a need for this authority, then is not Allah enough himself as an authority? Why do we need someone else to be in the middle? Allah himself can communicate with us directly and tell us. The existence of the hujjah on this earth, the authority of Allah on this earth, does not in any way interfere with the authority of Allah over the earth. No, but rather it is how Allah executes his authority on this earth. Shall I give you guys an example? Shall we do an example? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allah explains, and he says it in the Quran, Allah yatawaffa anfus hina mawtiha. Allah is the one who takes the souls at the time of their death. This is Allah's right. It is Allah the one who has the absolute authority over humanity, and Allah takes the soul of a person when he dies. But then at the same point in time in the Quran, Allah makes another statement where he says, قَالَ يَتَوَفَّاكُمْ مَلَكُ الْمَوْتِ الَّذِي وَكَّلَهُ بِكُمْ. And then Allah in another place in the Quran, in Surah Al-Zumar, verse 42, he makes the statement, he says, it's Malikul Maut who takes the soul, who has been appointed to take the soul. The idea that Malikul Maut takes the soul, and Allah is saying Malikul Maut takes the soul of a person when they die, in no way conflicts with the statement that Allah is the one who takes your soul. As a matter of fact, it goes even further, that, for example, when we look in Surah Al-Nahl, verse 28, Allah says, الَّذِينَ يَتَوَفَّاكُمُ الْمَلَائِكَةِ. That is the angels who take your soul. The authority of Malikul Maut, the authority of the angels, is not in any way in conflict with the authority of Allah. Rather, what we say is that Allah's authority is implemented through his appointee, who is the angel of death, or the angels. The same way when we say that Allah is our creator and brought us into existence, and we say that there is an authority over us on this earth that Allah has appointed, it does not interfere with Allah's authority over us. Rather, what it says is that Allah has given us a legatee, an appointee who has the responsibility to implement His authority over us. And as long as humanity exists, there has to be a divinely appointed authority over humanity. That if that's how Allah established it from the beginning, that's how it will go until the end of time, which is why we saw even our Imam alayhimus salam when they explained that had there been only 2 people left on this earth, if all of humanity would be gone from this earth and only 2 were left, one of them would be the authority of Allah on this earth. Because the fundamental is Allah has said that my authority over you is extended through this hujjah and authority. Now, one of the questions that comes in a contemporary conversation, and this is a legitimate question that comes and says, how can there be an authority on this earth now? We can't see Him. Right? There are those who criticize and say, where is the authority of Allah? If He exists, then we should be able to see Him. The question itself is flawed. The question is flawed and bad. When we look at the earth today, we live within a country. In this country, is there an authority over this country? Is there someone who's considered the leader of the executive branch of government here? A person who's in charge of the entire country? Let's not get into names, but let's just assume we know who it is, right? There's a person who's in charge of this country. Do you get to see him every day? Do you get to see him when you want? No. Is his authority over you implemented because I can see him? I mean, you live in the DMV area, maybe you do see him, I don't know. Maybe you walk through the market and hey, there's the guy, right? He's right there. But most of us who live in this country, we live in this country and there is someone who is appointed as an authority over the country, but we don't see him on a day-to-day basis. We don't get to go up to him and say, hey, how's it going? What are you doing today? How is your day? But we know that He's there and His authority is over us. We say that the proof that He is alive and present in authority over us is the fact that our country operates with government and there is order and justice in our land. The sign that the government is operating is that the people are operating with peace and agree and follow the rules of the land. Baba, the same way Allah has appointed His authority, whether you see the authority or not, the fact that the earth continues to operate and follow the rules and instruction tells us that Allah's authority over this earth is in operation and in function. The argument was never present that I need to see the authority. We operate under much authority. When you stop at a traffic light, is it because there's an officer standing there watching you? Sometimes, but most of the time, why is it? Because I know that there is a system of governance in place that is there to make sure that the rules are followed. The same way this earth operates under the function that Allah's authority is present in it. Had He not been present, it would not be able to function without the presence of Allah's authority. So the purpose of the Imam is that the Imam is the delegated individual who Allah has given the authority over this earth and the authority over creation, that He established that before man can be on this earth, the authority of Allah has to be present over this earth. To argue and say that if I can't see Him, how can He be present? There are many systems of authority over us. We don't see them, but they are present. The argument is invalid. It was never a condition for someone to be an authority over you that you, for example, go when you see them face to face. It's never a condition. You go to another country. You enter the country. Do you say, Baba, before I come into your country, show me the president. Show me the one in charge so that I know that he is here, that I know there is someone in charge of this country. We would say, what are you asking? The fact that we are sitting here, that there is a government here, that there is process here, tells you that there is someone who has established the nizam and order. The same way Allah has established the nizam and order for that nizam and that order to operate, the authority is present, and that's the proof for us that the authority is here. Which brings us to the second point in understanding the position of the Imam. What is the most important attribute of the Imam to possess? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The question of what is the most important quality that the Imam possesses is actually very relevant to our fifth Imam. Remember, our fifth Imam, when he begins his imamat, he has a brother by the name of Zayd ibn Ali. The sect of Zaydiyah came from this brother of the fifth Imam. And what happened is that after the shahadat of our fourth Imam, amongst the followers of Ahlul Bayt came a split, who disagreed what is the most important attribute that an Imam should possess. Some of them came forward and said that an imam has to be someone who is a revolutionary, who raises the sword, who goes out and fights for the sake of Islam. And they said, look, the example of Ali ibn Abi Talib, when he became the Khalifa, he went and he fought. And Qasitin and Marikin and Nakithin. He went out and he fought. Look at the example of Abu Abdullah in Karbala, and Abu Abdullah went and he fought and he stood against the injustice. Therefore, if there is an imam, there has to be someone who stands against the injustice and fights against the injustice. Therefore, the imam has to be revolutionary. He has to be someone who goes and he fights. Others said, no, that's not the important characteristic. If that's the characteristic, then the father of Zayd ibn Ali, Zayd ibn Ali, our fourth imam didn't go and fight. Our second imam didn't go and fight. Our prophet at times preferred to make peace than to fight. So the argument came, and the argument structures itself. What is the most important characteristic that the imam has to possess that can tell us that this is the imam and not someone else? At that time, in the life of our fifth imam, the argument presented itself that this one fights, this one doesn't. Therefore, the one that fights follows the sunnah of his grandfather. Therefore, we follow that individual. But the mistake was they didn't understand what is the most important aspect of the imam to possess. When we look at the authority of Allah on this earth, how do we know that this is the authority of Allah on this earth? That entire conversation of recognizing what is it that makes someone the authority, what is it that demonstrates that they have been empowered by Allah to have authority on this earth? If you were to argue and say that it is the ability to, for example, forge conflict, you would find for us, Madhab Ja'fari, we're in very much trouble because the majority of the A'immah alayhimus salam did not go and fight. They did not face conflict. So the idea that conflict should be the defining characteristic doesn't make sense. Rather, what we want to take a look at and see is that the most defining characteristic of the imam, of what tells us that who is the imam, is the use of knowledge. That Allah has preferred amongst humanity the most important attribute that a human being can possess and the most valuable characteristic that a human being possesses is his knowledge. This is what differentiates us from everyone else, and therefore the authority over us, the authority who is the one in charge of us, will be the one who is the most firmly planted in knowledge, which is why Allah Himself says, when He talks about the Quran and understanding the secrets of Quran, He says that no one knows the secrets of the Quran except Allah, illallah, wal-rasikhuna fil ilm. Those who are firmly established in knowledge. Knowledge is that defining characteristic of who is Allah's authority, that the one who is Allah's authority, there can be no one who is comparable in knowledge to this personality. That He will be the one who is the most defined, and there is never a moment in which His knowledge is lacking in any aspect. The significance of recognizing this attribute and knowing that the A'immah alayhimus salam are shown the superiority in humanity not by their fighting skill, not by their ability to make war, but by the perfection of their knowledge, points us to the reality of what is the most important thing that I as a human being need to do with my life. And that is attain knowledge. That the attaining of knowledge brings me closer to Allah. And the absence of knowledge takes me away from Allah. When He describes, for example, they are those who have ears, وَلَا يَسْمَعُونَ بِهَا. They have eyes, وَلَا يَبْصِرُونَ بِهَا. They have brains, وَلَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا. That they are like cattle. بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ. That Allah is saying the one who ignores the ability to gain knowledge is the one who is worse than even a cattle, because a cattle doesn't possess the opportunity for intellect, that he should then be able to be raising his status. But man is the one who, when he possesses the ability to perfect, and women too, by the way, I'm not discrediting the women, they have not, we all need to go through this process of attaining knowledge. The reason that this is important to understand is that if there is a guide for me, if there is an example for me in humanity who's teaching me what I need to do with my life, that the most important attribute that he possesses is the most important attribute that Allah wants me to develop in myself. And that's the pursuit of knowledge. And this concept is fundamentally a Shi'a concept. Why? Because it flies in the face of culture and society. Our American culture that we've adopted, forget American culture, global culture, is your responsibility to education is until you finish your degree. Once you can make money, khalas, Baba, you don't need to study anymore except enough to just make sure you can keep making money. This is not Islam. This is not what Allah created us for. Allah wants us that as we live our life, that the process of gaining knowledge doesn't stop that, okay, done, I finished college, I'm done, I'm out. I don't need to read books anymore. These books, these are for children. Look at the culture that we've created. That when one picks up a book, he says, this is for children to read. I have a job, I have responsibilities, I make money. Value me off of the amount of money I make, not off of the knowledge that I possess. This is contrary to what Allah wants us to learn about this world and what He wants us to do with our life in this world. He wants us to pursue knowledge from the cradle to the grave. That each of us has an obligation, as long as life persists, that we pursue this knowledge. And to show that knowledge is valuable, the Ahlul Bayt, the Aimma alayhimus salam, showed perfection in knowledge. Shall I give you an example? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. When we look at the speech of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, khususan, let's take a look at the speech of our fifth Imam, that's who we're here to mention. When we look at the speech of our fifth Imam, one of the amazing, miraculous attributes of the speech of a Ma'soom is you can't tell how old the individual is when they make that speech. You see, normal human being, I say something, you can judge by the words that I use, the age and experience with which I'm speaking. Go take a look at your writings from elementary school. It's still you, but you look at that writing and you say, today I will be a unicorn. You say, how foolish was I? But the speech of a Ma'soom, Kalamul Imam, Imamul Kalam, that the speech of an Imam is the best speech that can be made. It is the best conclusion that a person can achieve, which is why we see that the Imam's instruction and teaching for us is timeless. It applies in every situation and it is beneficial to us in every situation. There's one hadith where we see in Kitab al-Khisal that is mentioned where the Imam speaks to Jabir al-Ju'fi. And he says, Jabir, there are 5 things and 5 commandments that I issue to you. The Imam is speaking 1400 years ago. 1400 years ago, the speech of the Imam. Tell me if it's not relevant today. He says the first is if someone wrongs you, O Jabir, do not wrong them. If someone betrays you, then do not betray them. If someone accuses you of being a liar, do not be angry with them. And if someone praises you for a quality, do not be happy about it. If someone dispraises you, O Jabir, then be patient. When someone makes this comment about you, that they dispraise you, that they claim bad qualities about you, stop. Don't become angry. Rather, look at the comment that they're making. If you find what they're describing to be present in you, O Jabir, then be honest with yourself and correct this attribute in front of Allah, because Allah does not like one to be boastful and full of his ego and not correct his issues. Remember, that was the example of Shaitan. Shaitan is the one who came in, he says, I am better than Adam. And he stood by that statement, and he could not acknowledge that Allah has given to Adam something that Iblis did not possess. So Imam is saying, he's saying that if they dispraise you, they say bad things about you, stop. Don't be angry. First and foremost, look, is it true? If it's true, then correct yourself. And then the Imam makes a beautiful statement. And he says, if it's not true, and if they're wrong, then be satisfied that you are attaining a reward without tiring your body. Look at the beauty of the statement of the Imam. that he's teaching you, that our necessity to react, that should someone come and attack us, don't react. Wait, be patient. If the attack the person is making is true, fix yourself. That someone is showing you a flaw in your character, correct yourself, improve yourself. And if they're wrong and they're attaching a lie to you and they're accusing you of a falsehood that you don't possess, enjoy. That Allah will reward you for this accusation. And you earn the reward with Allah without having to exert any effort from yourself to earn that reward. That's why we take a look and we see the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam are incredibly significant in teaching us what are the best characteristics and behaviors to perform. The best characteristics and behaviors to perform this Eid al-Adha that is coming. The Imam himself explains, he says, shall I tell you what are the best things to do on this day of Eid al-Adha? Shall we listen? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. From our fifth Imam, the narration comes, there are 5 things that are the best to do on the day of Eid al-Adha. And because it is coming this next week, it's worth to listen to. The first, the Imam says that on this day of Eid, one of the best things you can do is to offer a sacrifice, offer an animal in sacrifice, udhiyah. One of the misconceptions that we have is that udhiyah is only for those who go to Hajj. No, the hadi, the wajib part of the Hajj to offer a sacrifice is a part of Hajj, but the idea of offering a sacrifice on the day of Eid al-Adha has nothing to do with the Hajj. It is mustahab for every Muslim to perform. Every Muslim should perform this, and it's one of the recommendations. Our holy Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he was asked about this, someone asked, Ya Rasulullah, I don't have enough money to offer udhiyah and to offer an animal for sacrifice. Should I take a loan for it? Should I borrow money to do this action? Is it good? Rasulullah says, yes, it's good. Imam Ali reinforces the statement of the Holy Prophet. He says, if you knew the khair in offering this udhiyah, you yourself would go out and take loans to offer this udhiyah on the day of Eid, because it is something that is that valuable. So the Imam is explaining, for us living in these lands, to offer this udhiyah, to offer this sacrifice, whether in our own country, other countries, anywhere, if we can afford to do it, if we can share with others to do it, it's one of the mustahabbat, and to do it on behalf of ourselves and our family is one of the things that has such a benefit that even if you have to take a loan to do it because it's that good for you. So the Imam says the first thing to do on this Eid, he's giving us nidham, he's giving us order in our life, offer the sacrifice. 2, he says go on the day of Eid and visit your parents. Show kindness to them and give them gifts. He says 3, if you have a relative who has broken relations with you, use this day as a wasila to go and connect back with the relatives that have broken relations with you. Pay attention to your connections. Pay attention to the responsibility of Sila Raham and change your behavior. Go look for the ones who have broken relations with you and connect with them. 4th, he says, use from the extra money that you possess to give gifts to your relatives, gifts to your friends, gifts to your family, to connect with them and to stay attached with them on this day. And the 5th, he says, eat from the sacrifice that you offer and feed it to the poor and those who are in need. Do a good deed with the sacrifice should you be able to offer it. The Imam's instructions in these points is an order and a dignity that is offered to every person in every time. We can't say that his recommendation was for 1400 years ago. What does it have to do with us today? This is the demonstration that the Imam, the way that he's recognized, is that his speech is timeless. Its benefit is without limitation, and there is no one who can give you greater benefit than the Imam himself. Which brings us to our 3rd point before we come towards our conclusion, is what is the relationship and what is the significance of the observation of the waqi' of Karbala and the commemoration of the lives and the biographies of all of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. You see, this question comes from the discussion that may happen, especially amongst our youth. That they may see that when the month of Muharram comes, for the period of 40 days or more, 50 days or more, there's majalis. And any majlis that we have, we like to have the mention of the masa'ib of Abu Abdullah. And as a counterpoint to that, they say that what of the masa'ib of the other A'immah alayhimus salam? Why don't we mention them with the same process as we do? There are those, for example, who say there's Arba'een of Imam Hussein. Why not Arba'een of Imam Ali? The instruction for the observation of Waqi' of Karbala, Waqi'at al-Taf, is from the Ahlul Bayt themselves. You see, if it was left to us to make this decision about how we would observe things, one of the ulama points to reality. He says, if it was my intellect, I would celebrate Karbala and I would weep over Musa Kazim. Why? Imam Hussein had a victory. He saved the message of Islam. But Imam Musa ibn Ja'far spent over 14 years in prison. If you have seen those cells that my Imam spent time in, they were those cells where he could not stand up straight, nor could he lie down flat. He says, had this been my discretion, I would say that this is the point of crying over that my Imam was abused for 14 years, or more in some narrations. But look at the example of the son of Imam Musa ibn Ja'far. Imam Ali al-Ridha is the one who teaches us to cry for Karbala. The Imam is giving us the instruction that the Waqi' of Karbala is what we want you to turn back to and stay attached to. That the significance of the Masa'ib of Karbala are important for us in our life. But the Waqi' of Karbala does not take the place of the A'immah. Rather, the event of Karbala, the emotion of the difficulty of Ahlul Bayt, is a wasila for building the love and connection between us and the A'immah alayhimus salam. That when we build that love, it is our responsibility then to keep and retain the connection with the rest of the A'immah. That through this event of building the love for Ahlul Bayt, we now turn to the A'immah and say that you are the remainders of Abu Abdullah, you are the remainders of Rasulullah, give us guidance and teaching in our life. The argument that we present is not to say that that one event is more important than the lives of the rest of the Ma'asumeen, but rather through that event we build the love for Ahlul Bayt that brings us back here to talk about the events of Ali Muhammad. Sallu ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Your second salawat for love of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Your loudest is condolence to Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman. Understanding that the Ahlul Bayt took the time to teach us the Waqi' of Karbala so that we would be able to connect to Allah through them. That we would be able to realize the value and have that love and emotional connection. Which is why one of the things that sometimes we don't pay attention to is that this fifth Imam of ours is the mu'arrikh of the event of Karbala. He is the historian of the event of Karbala. Baqir Sharif Qarashi, when he writes about the biography of our fifth Imam, in the Arabic language, the books of Baqir Sharif Qarashi, he's written over 30 volumes on the seerah and the life of Ahlul Bayt. In English, these have been translated to 12 volumes. But as he discusses our fifth Imam, and it's an extensive work on our fifth Imam, he says that our Imam was such a narrator of the event of Karbala that over 60,000 books of Maqtal al-Hussein were written from the dictations of Imam al-Baqir. Our life of our fifth Imam is broken into some phases. He's born in the year 57 after Hijrah. In the first 3 to 4 years of his life, he spends in the company of his grandfather, Imam Hussein. He's approximately the age of 4 in the field of Karbala. He is present in the field of Karbala, and he narrates the events of Karbala. After that, he spends roughly 35 years with his father, and then at the age of 39, he becomes the Imam of the time for a period of 19 years. During this period of 19 years, and during his life, even with his father, our Imam is the one who became the teacher for humanity, such that his laqab of Baqir, one who splits open, is not given by anyone else except for by our holy Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. To explain this title, we need a whole entire discussion within itself. But what does it mean when this Imam is called one who is the one who splits open knowledge? You see, the education system today believes in the concept of understanding the theory. One of the fundamental difference between, and this happens in your own houses if you know this or not. You know when you tell your child to do something and he comes back and he says, Baba, why? Or you tell your daughter to do something and she says, why? You know where this why is coming from? It's coming from the education system. Because one of the things that's different for education in America versus education in Iraq, Pakistan, Afghanistan, all those places, that in those countries you're told, here's a book, memorize it. In America, when they hand you a book, they say, understand the concept behind it. And when you understand the concept, you can apply it to any problem. So you say, understand the principle, and you can apply it anywhere. So when our children learn this process, they learn the idea that if I understand the reason why, I can go out and I can apply it myself. So therefore, when we tell them, go wash the dishes, they say, why? Because they want to understand the concept the school is teaching them. This why in understanding the concept is understanding the kernel and the source of knowledge and information. Our fifth Imam was the one who took society and taught them to understand the kernel of knowledge. Don't just look at the words, but understand the reason why they were revealed to you and what their significance is. Understand the why. And this title was given to him, that he will be the one who will teach society the why and understand the source of this knowledge by our Prophet. When we talk about our fifth Imam, knowing that he is our fifth Imam, we didn't decide he was the fifth Imam. Rasulullah told us this is your fifth Imam. Rasulullah is the one who says, Jabir, you will remain alive until you meet one whose name is my name, whose smell is my smell, whose features are my features, and he will be the one who splits open this knowledge completely. And when you meet him, give him my salam. The fact that Jabir is alive and he knows that this Imam is coming, he would sit inside of the masjid and call out, Ya Baqir, Ya Baqir. And the people would complain, Inna Jabir yahjur. Jabir has lost his mind. And Jabir would say, I have not lost my mind. Rather, I am waiting for the one that Rasulullah told me I would meet. The entire discussion around this conversation is fascinating, but unfortunately for the shortage of time, we simply say that the Imam spent his life teaching this knowledge to the extent where his approach of teaching knowledge disturbed the khulafa of the time to where they saw the threat from the teaching of Imam al-Baqir. And they made the decision that this Hisham ibn Abdul Malik decided that it was time that the Imam would be poisoned and the Imam would be killed. The poisoning of the Imam is described as such that there are two ways that it's described, that either Hisham gave a poison that the Imam was forced to drink, or two, that he applied the poison to the saddle of the Imam and then sent the Imam from the city of Sham on such a saddle that was covered in such a poison that it caused the Imam to lose his life. At the end of his life, the Imam gave out his nasiha, gave out in his final moments, he gave out his will and his testament. And amongst his will and testament, the Imam made a will that was unlike anyone else, that he says, Oh Ja'far, I want you to take this amount of money, and for the 10 years in Mina, call the people to cry over me and to show my masa'ib to the people. The khulafa of the time had wanted to separate the example of knowledge from the people, so they had him poisoned. The Imam ensured that in Mina, when everyone from all over the world gathers in the place of Hajj, that they should know who it was that was killed and why it was that he was killed. Yabna Rasulullah, today this majlis gathers that 1,000 years later, we too are here to gather and to discuss your masa'ib. This is our answering to that Imam's message, that know who I was, what it was that I made important to you, and to stay attached to that message. My Imam is the one who in his final moments, when he was surrounded, he had his son by him. They describe and they say that as my Imam was in his final moments and he bid his farewell, from one side his sons would gather, from the other side his family would gather. My Imam had the family around him that sat with him until eventually the poison took its effect. The sweat of death overcame his brow. His breathing became shallow. His eyes began to close. His hands began to open and close until eventually it was that the soul of the Imam left his body. My Imam became martyred by the effects of this poison. Imam Jafar took this body of his father, took it to the place of Baqir and prepared a grave next to the grave of Imam Zainul Abidin, his grandfather, and laid his father. Imam Baqir had said, "Oh my son, when I die, bury me and put my cape, put my abba that I would wear in salat upon me. Put my amama upon my head. Bury me and make my grave so that it is 4 fingers above the ground." Yabna Rasulullah, you gave the instructions of how to make your grave. You gave the instructions of where you were to be buried. But hi Abu Abdullah in the field of Karbala, the Masa'ib you would narrate of your forefather, the Masa'ib you would narrate of the events of Karbala, when you would turn and you would say, and I say this because my Imam said it, that they killed Abu Abdullah in such a way that Rasulullah said it is forbidden to kill a dog the way they killed Hussein. Ya Ibn Rasulullah, you said bury you in your cave. Ya Hussein, the one who was buried without any kafan on his body. Ya Ibn Rasulullah, you said bury me with my turban. Hide the head of Hussein on the spear. Imam Baqir is the one who would narrate the event of Karbala, that I may have been poisoned by the saddle, but it was Hussein who was run over by the horses in his life. My Imam is the one who would narrate the events of what happened in the field of Karbala and how it was that he said, my father Hussein had over 300 wounds on his body. Some were from swords, some were from spears, some were from arrows. And the mal'oon who did not have any of these threw stones at my father Abu Abdullah in the field of Karbala. That one who didn't have stones would throw burning wood at my father in the field of Karbala. Hi Madloom, we know about Abu Abdullah that Imam Baqir said every wound that was inflicted on the front of the body of Abu Abdullah. One description, they say there was not enough space on the Imam's body the size of a ring or where a finger would fit, that there was not a wound. But oh Imam al-Baqir, this was not all that you narrated. You narrated how it was that after he was run over by the horses, you were taken from the field of Karbala. You narrated the atrocities of your aunt Zainab crying in the city of Kufa. You narrated your cousin, your niece Sakina, your aunt Sakina being lost in the field on the way to Sham. You narrated the event in the court of Yazid where it was that your aunt Fatima was to be taken as a slave, and still you were the one who narrated the return to Medina, that when your aunt Zainab came back to the city, there was no one who could recognize her. There are 3 moments upon the return from the city of Karbala that narrate, that say that they could not recognize Zainab. One is that daughter of Abu Abdullah who was left, who came and said that she did not recognize this lady. 2 was that al-Baneen who comes, and a woman comes and says, "A'azam Allah laki al-ajr ya al-Baneen." She says, "Lady, leave me, I am looking for my daughter Zainab." Zainab cries and says, "I am your daughter Zainab. I am the one who has been overcome by these difficulties of Karbala." على لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. ندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم. We raise our hands in dua by the right of the tears in our eyes, by the right of this night, by the right of the mention of our Imam. Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. Oh Allah, accept this small ibadat from us. Ya Allah, give the thawab of this majlis to the marhum and all of our marhumin. Oh Allah, keep our children on the upright path of Islam. Ya Allah, those amongst our families and our communities who are suffering through sickness and disease, Ya Allah, give shafa'at to the mu'mineen wherever they are. Ya Allah, hasten the reappearance of Sahibul Zaman. Make us and our families from the upright supporters of Sahibul Zaman and entitle us to the shafa' of Abu Abdullah in dunya and akhirah. Matim Hussein.